Find me a child that I might live again.
Yes, a child. A child. A child?
BenBen? Welcome to the BenBen Show. I'm your host, BenBen. Little testicle following up right hand corner there. Sorry about that. This episode of the BenBen Show is brought to you by Better Endings. Recall that selfish slut Rose in Titanic just staying on that door while the love of her life allegedly is holding on. So cold, so cold. Wouldn't it have been better if Jack kicked Rose off that door frame, hopped onto that sucker? She's riding and screaming in the ocean, Jack, but why? Shut up, you selfish slut. I want to live. And then he takes out that drawing where she's naked with a gorgeous heart of the ocean on her chest right next to her patungas. And he just starts fondling himself, but crying at the same time because he knows that she's right there crying. He's like, I can't hear anything. Jack, shut up, bitch. I just want to live. I love you. Shut up. That would have been a better ending. Never saw that one coming. Let's do it. DWA, new sponsor, new clothing line, Deplorables with Attitude. Deplorables with Attitude. CEO, co-founder, what's up? Yes, thank you very much.
Deplorables with Attitude is amongst the fastest growing brands in fashion today. So get yours at deplorar.com.
The U.S. Senate this week, in case those of you think I live in the Holy Roman Empire, U.S. Senate confirmed Merrick Garland as the Attorney General. Biden's nomination, lovely, wonderful. Slow news week, I know. What I have noticed is daytime TV is really ramping up. I think because there's just not much to talk about anymore now that Trump's gone, they're really trying to get let's combine a cooking show with a travel show and, Maury. You know, like some sort of lesbian transgender high school student meets her real mom and they somehow give birth to a dragon. Something. And then they cook the dragon eggs and they eat it and they talk about how to do that on the show and how to saute it and it's lovely. Something like that. But I think it's interesting that TV show hosts do this weird thing where they feign interest in the most mundane of things just because they're trying to sell. Kind of like they take that idea of selling on what's that? Oh, been to the guy's house. Almost slept with his daughter, his granddaughter. Yeah, or his niece. Someone one generation away. The TV home shopping network. Yeah, Palm Beach Island. Oh man, she was my friend was crying. He liked her a lot, and I didn't really like her, but she was hitting on me profusely. I mean, it's part of the deal. Tall, good looking. But I didn't want to. I said, if you make out with my friend, I'll let you go down on me. And I thought that was an equal thing. You have to get to me, you have to, do something to him. And I thought, proportionately that's fair compromise. It didn't happen. She got too drunk and threw up in her pool, but that's okay. I also lost my phone in her pool. Where was I? Oh yes, TV show host talking about mundane things, making them sound interesting. So it's I met Sarah in Vermont when my husband and I got lost in the mountains. She took us in and made us the most delicious vichyssoise soup. I mean, magical. And the Cornish game hens, oh my God. But do you know what was even better than that? She told me about the bowls for the soup that she makes by hand. Oh, isn't that amazing? These cute little bowls. Let me show you. For only 5 payments of $5.95. It's just why do you don't care about the bowls, man? That's your story. And it's cool to talk about where you're around a bunch of acquaintances at a holiday party or something like that. But to sell that to people, to I want to be part of her really boring, irrelevant story. The cool part would have been I saved Sally Jesse Raphael when she was lost in the mountains with her husband. Not I bought one of her bowls from the woman that she met that saved her life. How derivative is that? It's so weird. How do you get off on that? That they obviously do because they make money. So screw you guys that buy those bowls. Louis C.K. has a joke about going to a random shop and I don't want to do his joke, but because if I tell it, I feel like I have to do it to set. He's like, whenever I went to Spain because people caught me masturbating in front of the lady. So to Spain, so everyone's like, don't go to Madrid, don't go to Madrid. You gotta go. It's like 75 miles away, small little town. You're gonna love it. It's amazing. It's so authentic. And he talks about he goes to this shop and this woman has all these like handmade crap, and he's in there. Makes a little ding 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 on the door. It's like the only person came in there last month is him, and a bunch of other Americans. And he has to pretend to like this stuff because it's like that's her life's work. All these like pots, and he lifts them up. He's like, and she's just like, "Oh, you gonna buy?" Like without saying that, just like he's like, "Oh yeah, this is great, amazing. I would buy, but I don't know. I might come back." They kind of look, and she's just like, "Oh, fuck you, America! You selfish piece of shit. You could buy 100 of those, not care. What was your first class ticket on British Airways to get here? Come on." And so, yeah, that's just like, I don't know. There's something really profusely awful about that type of commerce. It's like that we have that type of money to just waste on this totally irrelevant crap. But more than that, you take something that's pure, like a story about getting lost in the mountains with your husband, and you sell that for the sake of getting some sort of like interest payment or profit sharing thing with some woman you have on your show. It's so gross and vile. But this is what happens. We get more and more of this because Trump's gone. There's nothing to talk about. It's awful. Stefan, what is the hottest club in New York City right now? The hottest club in New York City is Jemima. That's right, sports fans. For only $5, that's right, $5 a month, you can get an exclusive BenBen edition to Aunt Jemima, signed by moi, yes, and a video in your honor where I will announce anyone of your liking. I'll talk crap about your sister. I'll tell your brother that he should be transsexual because he'd look better that way and get more girls. That's how ugly he is. Or I'll even call your mother a whore. I'll do whatever it takes. Come on, sign up. $5. Lovely. Patreon down below. Yeah. All right, let's get into it, shall we? Biden is set to talk for the first time since the inauguration, since signing the oath, swearing, blah, blah, blah. I plan to do the best I can until Kamala takes my spot. Kamala. Which one's the not N-word version? It's weird that you can talk about someone's name, mispronounce it, and that's racist. I've never heard of that before. It's very odd. The vowels in it make sense. This should be Kamala. Okay, if there was an H on the end, but Camilla? Whatever. I digress. But he's not been active since taking the oath. Camilla has been. She's talked to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. She's talked about Syria with people in power, foreign leaders, Prince Salman, Mohammed bin Salman's people. She was more in the talks of determining not to have sanctions against him personally for killing Khashoggi, the journalist in Turkey, I think it was, 2018, October. Denounced the Saudi Arabian crown, and so he had to go. We decided not to do anything. That might have been Camilla's decision. Syrian airstrikes might have been her decision as well. More and more foreign dignitaries have talked about meeting with her, not so much him. Which makes sense that his first primetime speech will be about what he knows, because you can't really bullshit about stuff you weren't in the room for when decisions were made, right? Like, if he was being interviewed by Elon Musk for a position at Tesla or SpaceX, what type of engineering problem have you faced in the past and how did you deconstruct it to come to a solution? You can't come up with it if you weren't in the room and weren't actually solving the problems. So the White House press briefings have been private. He's been very careful about talking publicly off the cuff, not on message or not on script. So it makes sense that during the election cycle, all he talked about was, American people are going to die if Trump gets back in. I'm the man with the plan to kill the virus. I know what to do. I'm not going to tell you the plan until you vote for me, but I know what to do. I don't know why I'm doing an Arkansas accent for Biden right now, but I think it has to do with Hillary Clinton and the Women's Initiative. Women's Initiative, Women First by Hillary. Juanita Broderick, Paula Jones, all those women talking crap about my husband are horrible lies. But Como, man, that man's awful. Oh, he's just awful. We have to do something about him. Those women are telling the truth. That's probably why I'm doing it. So my apologies. But back to Biden. Everyone gets older and cognitive decline happens. But the worst ruse against the American people is using a man who doesn't have a lot of investment, like longevity. You can't put a bunch of money into Biden because he's not going to last very long. You want Camilla to win, and you want to put all the millions of dollars behind her, but you can't really do that because she doesn't have that Obama legacy to her name, and she didn't really test well, right, in the primaries. So what do? You set up a situation where he runs. You basically get a bunch of people to vote for him who are voting for Obama and against Trump. That's kind of that's the optionality. And she just so happens to take over. People start to associate her with Biden, which then gets kind of associated with Obama. And this cycle, more pictures of her and Obama. It just cycles into this thing. More Clinton, Obama, Kamala. That's the investment cycle. And he starts to fade, Biden does, and she starts to take the reins. But it doesn't have to happen formally. It doesn't have to happen where he steps down, because then it'll make it seem like the American people were duped. She can run the show behind the scenes just like Dick Cheney did with George H.W. And then she'll have plenty of time to earn the presidency on her own in another rigged election. Another election on her own. And Biden can, take this time to really enjoy drooling in front of the mirror and shitting his depends. My father was giving lectures at Georgetown University in his late 20s on finance. He's a leveraged buyout, financial engineering guy. And, one day he's going to be yelling at the mailman for stealing his socks while he, walks out of the house with no underwear. That's just going to happen. It's awful. It's not really funny, even though that scene would be interesting if you didn't know that he was old and had dementia, right? Like, he was like, God, this guy really has some balls. Literally, huge. It's just that to do this from the perspective of the Democrats. They did it with Hillary too. They don't disclose these incidents. They talk about health issues are off limits. Well, Barron Hilton's Asperger, quote unquote, allegations during the election night where he was just exhausted. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. People were attacking him. That wasn't off limits. So why is Hillary's seizures? Why is that off limits? Why is Bill Clinton's past off limits? Why is Biden being the leader of the free world, quote unquote, the most powerful man in the world? How can he get a free ride on this legitimate access to nuclear launch codes and making decisions that can completely, let's be real. The man who determines whether people die at the press of a button is dementia. How is this not more of a story? How? Forget the formality of the diagnosis. The man who can bomb countries, launch nuclear weapons at will, allegedly, dark men in suits running from behind the scenes, the whole deal, who knows? But at face value, that man literally is forgetting things.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Lily already indicated, I'm Joe Biden's husband, Joe Biden.
My name is Joe Biden. I'm Joe Biden's husband, and I am Kamala's running mate.
Great. God, Lily, how are you? Hey, everyone. I'm Joe Biden's husband.
Yeah, that guy. That guy is the guy that can say, we should bomb them and take their oil. Those innocent people are worthy of dying for the sake of getting that person living in a hole in the mountains in Afghanistan or wherever. It didn't take very long for us to start bombing countries again. It's not like Trump didn't go bomb in Syria. Drone strikes were up enormously, but the military industrial complex is very glad to have Biden back, and that's really all I can say about it. But the secretive Camilla presidency could very well be 4 years, and then Biden decides this might be the play, the long term. Let's really step it up. Let's make me president, or let's keep me in as president until the next election, and then get the sympathy vote by saying I have a cognitive decline. It's not like mid-election. I'm concerned that I've been formally diagnosed. Say it was dead even between he and Trump in the next election. I want Camilla to take over. And so then all the people on the fence are like, wow, that's a really honorable thing to do. That shows a lot of responsibility. we are totally on board with that. I have to go with them. Like that's bold, just to give up the presidency like that for the sake of a health issue at his age. Wow, good for him. That's honesty, that's truth, that's integrity. And so he bows out in the middle of the elections. Now, all of Trump's fight against Biden is now thrown out because he's an innocent victim of some disease, right? And then Kamalik steps in as a symbol of the Biden administration, of the Obama administration. And then Trump's like, God, all my equity into fighting him is now, it's gone. It's been thrown out with the bathwater. That's a good way of doing it. I don't know. It's very possible that's what happens. But putting someone in the office that's one fig Newton away from a crab apple pie is wrong. You like that analogy? I mean, it's a duping of the American people. It really is. It's so vile to think that we are dumb enough to believe that Hillary didn't have seizures and that Biden isn't losing it. But we guess the media was able to convince enough people that Trump's that evil. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. I don't think his first 30, 40, 60, 90 days have been that interesting. 50 executive orders, haven't really heard from him. I don't know, man. There's even a reporter, someone at one of the White House press briefings was talking to the White House press secretaries. Someone and said, like, corrected her, like, well, these viral antivirals, right? Vaccines were from Trump. She was trying to associate the vaccines with the Biden administration in some like formal way, and she was corrected. Something that like you feel like Trump would never have gotten leniency on when he was president. Like any positive thing ever happened. The only thing I remember is was it Barnett, Sarah Barnett from CNN talking about the Kim Jong-un nuclear neutrality deal or something with Trump. Like if Trump really did this, he's truly a great president. Only thing I ever heard positive about Trump, ever. And it's just bizarre. It makes so much money, the bifurcation of the media, like just like people are pro-Trump or pro-conservative. Trump's not conservative, but this is the association. He's people are pro-racist and people are pro-good things. Like that's the juxtaposition. That's the way they show it, anyways. It's such a moneymaker. Like Tucker Carlson, Steven Crowder, people have made careers out of this, but the reality is it's not just a pulp culture, phenomenon. It's effectually become very, very real in terms of the transforming, the terraforming of our society. I worry about the way the stimulus plan works as the debt crisis creeps up, as we start to realize that the equity markets are way out of whack with some of the debt contracts we have that haven't been facilitated because of COVID relief plans and like land ownership. The ETFs in those equity deals are completely disassociated from the primary markets of the debt deals. There's going to be a debt crisis. It's going to happen. This market is going to fall. It's very possible that Stephen Cohen's prediction, others, of a financial crisis in the next 2 years was offset or created initially by the pandemic and our response to it, right? But that was synthetic. The debt got worse. Nothing improved in terms of the loan segment of that. The bailing out of businesses by the Fed, not enough's happened. There's still enormous amounts of potential defaults looming in the wind that have just been pushed off. And you're starting to see that with the US dollar. You're starting to see that in the Forex markets. So interesting to see. I don't know. But yeah, scary. What if someone's like really annoying and they're bothering you, and it would be okay to treat them like you were the guy in the movie The Thing that's mid-transformation caught in the snow? It was just like, asking some friends asking you for money that never gives you it back. It's like, dude, all I need is I know I owe you $10 million, but if you just give me $20 and you can just go, just 22, that's just like, okay, dude, all right. No, that's socially acceptable. That would be fun. I love to see that in real life. Just walking on the street, like, oh man, he must have done something wrong. He's apologized. I didn't mean to sleep with her. She's just, the girl's doing it too. Like, that'd be nice. I'd like that. Something different. There's a juxtaposition between the Obama-Biden camp and the border situation. All 3,200 children being held in cages right now. And it's not about how awful Biden is for doing this. The way they changed the narrative is there's 3,200 children waiting to come into this country. What do we do about this situation? Not how awful it is to detain them. Nothing about that. They completely take the same exact story and say, well, 3,200 children, what should we do? It's like funneling the balls to, we got to make them citizens. Of course we do. Right? That's the incentive to come in, use the children, come into this country. If we don't, it's our fault. It's nothing to do with people coming in illegally. Like, it's like, well, why do we have borders? What's the point of having? Well, that's just for rich people, But like, people that really need to come in now, they're gonna die. They should be able to come in whenever they want, however they want. But if you, it's so bullshit. It's so bullshit. It's so manipulative. And you just take a bunch of people that, mostly unskilled, since the reason why they need to come here, right? There's all these subsidies in the U.S. government, all this free money. Like, they're not starting to work it. They're not getting MBAs, these people crossing the border illegally, right? They're unskilled. And they're coming in, and they're going to be dependent on the U.S. government, which makes a whole new subsidization of Democratic voters, or leftist voters. They're going to be dependent on the government for subsidies, and will vote a certain way, and that's that. And these type of stories kind of like softball, and then that's awful. We've got to make them citizens. It's fine. Do what you want. Amnesty, fine. But be honest about it. It's the same story that would have been under the Trump administration, except it's not attacking him. It's so vile. And this is kind of a bipartisan issue. Especially when you want to say Republicans are anti-immigration or whatever. Marco Rubio's immigration bill in 2016 could have easily been written by Hillary Clinton. Both sides like the idea of cheap labor and manipulation. The problem is, if you really care about a group of immigrants coming to this country, you don't want to dilute their underskilled value to the workforce by bringing in another group and another group. Soon you have a bunch of people that only have a limited set of jobs in the country that can work, and then you create a situation where if you raise the minimum wage, as Biden's suggesting, you're facilitating a bunch of people that are going to be unemployed, which might be the point, is that they are forced to create and argue that there needs to be a universal minimum wage, because look at all these people. 25% of which weren't in this country 5-10 years ago, but hey, I digress. We need to give these people free money. We need to have free taxes, universal benefits, minimum wage. That's necessary. Look, it worked under the pandemic. This would be a hyper acceleration of this new great reset in the way we work. And it's already happening, because we're undermining small businesses in this sense of hiring practices and to be able to have discretionary income, because the more people that work from home are going to get paid less money, and so on and so forth. And they're going to have less money to facilitate the economy, which means a consolidation of corporate interests into a smaller and smaller section of the 1%. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles. I know millions of people, I know millionaires during the pandemic that lost a lot of money and potentially almost lost their businesses, that are small business owners. And it just shows you the levels of income, what this did. And why is it that there's this lauding of all these, stimulus packages to help small business, but the reality is that so many people got screwed. People who started their businesses this year were denied the ability to function, not because they they don't have a good business model, because you as an individual are not capable of making decisions about your health for you. You cannot make the right decisions. So we are going to force those businesses to stay closed so that you're not going to be dumb enough, you an American citizen with freedoms and rights and self-determination, to walk into a shop and keep it open. That may or not in the act of doing so spread a disease. We're not going to put the onus on you. We're just going to block off the supply so there's no reason to leave your house. That was the idea. And it's very, very dark because it implies that the U.S. government doesn't believe in what you think is best in for your health. But at the same time, a woman has the right to have an abortion, whatever, blah 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 blah. That those are important rights. It's interesting, the suspension of the ability to. A lot of those, I think, when we look, provided that history isn't manipulated by the winners, the socialist winners, which it looks like where we're going in this country, it appears as though the constitutionality of shutting down people from being able to survive, forcing them to live off the government, is such a dangerous precedent that it's now all it takes is a virus, so you never know when it's coming. And this is how we're going to handle it. It's scary as crap, because if you ever wanted to do this again synthetically, I don't see any way of, like, how would you stop it, right? Like if you wanted to, the U.S. government wanted to shoot down a public airliner as a reason for the Bay of Pigs, look at the commies, the submarine Russian subs surrounding Cuba shot down. If we have to go in, we either are going to use one of our own airlines and a fake one and say it came down, or we're going to kill a bunch of American people for real just to invade a country for our own interest, whatever those interests are. And the interests are of attacking a philosophy. Communism wasn't a real thing that was scary, except for the philosophy of capitalism being attacked by socialism, by communism. The precept of the American people, in summation, latching onto that idea, that was what was dangerous to the way America is as a capitalist country. And that's what's interesting. The philosophy comes too dangerous, conservative thought, libertarian thinking, creating a situation where we destroy that. Part of that is destroying small business. Right? Like entrepreneurial endeavors is not a very liberal. I'm not saying you can't be liberal and be an entrepreneur. What I'm saying is a lot of people that start small businesses that become more money-minded is the same correlation to why most people become more conservative as they get older. They realize the time value of money. They want to leave something for their children. They don't want to pay high taxes. They want to pay estate taxes. They create trust. They realize that the value proposition for money is discounted backwards. So, is that, this is what it is. It is what it is. Biden's German Shepherds bit one of the Jewish Secret Service agents at the White House. What's his name? Major? God, it sounds awful. He's now back in Delaware. This is probably the reason why they didn't punish Prince bin Salman. Saudi Arabia doesn't like Israel very much. No, we don't talk about that, but they'd be the first ones to wipe them off the map. All my friends are Jewish, more or less, and I talk about this with them every so often. It's kind of true. It's really interesting that there's this subtle variation of they buy our T-bills. They own 500 billion to 1 trillion of our debt, treasury bonds, and we buy their oil, even though we continue to say we're going to decrease our dependence on foreign oil. That's going to change. We're going to stop export. We're going to start buying. All this will change under Biden. Go back to the Henry Kissinger dynamic that he created with Saudi Arabia. And it's true. It's a very weird thing. It's like there's this huge anti-Semitic contradictory element of our relationship with Saudi we don't talk about because of the money. Kind of gross, but it is what it is. New claim by assistant to Governor Cuomo last year at the governor's mansion. She was asked to stay late and help with some issue the governor was having. And that's when an incident occurred. Cuomo, in a press conference with reporters on Tuesday afternoon, did not deny touching any woman, but repeatedly stated that if he did touch or had touched a woman, it was not inappropriate. And I'm thinking, what? If you did touch a woman, it was not inappropriate. According to whom, sir? According to you? According to the BTK killer, everything he was doing was just fine and dandy. According to Ted Kaczynski, to protect the world against technological advances, what he was doing was absolutely necessary. According to any perp on Lauder or SVU, what they're doing is amazing and feels great, and there's no one being harmed. Or if they are, they don't particularly care, based on their opinion. So therefore, what's inappropriate is very subjective. But yeah, I think the guy's getting lambasted all of a sudden. You know, first one accusation, first one like ever, and then boom, another one comes out of the woodwork. And I'm not sure if the claim was made last year, like late last year's the allegation, right? But was it made late last year and he wasn't aware that something was filed against him? Or did it recently just come out and she filed it? And it's just what's very, like, these things are unfalsifiable. They're weapons. They're absolute weapons. Nothing you can do about it. I don't like the guy. He's destroyed small business in New York. You saw all those wonderful restaurants and shops that have like historical placards on them closed up. You know, we've been open since 1940, earlier than that. And they had to shut down because of COVID. The rents did not, no PPE to them, did not make a difference. Maybe they didn't have rent control and their margins kept getting lower and lower and they were able to stay open barely. And then PPP came around like, well, listen, this is what you make and this is what your margins are. We can't really, but it was, PPP is based off gross, isn't it? Or EIDL is based off gross. I don't know, but the amount of like people that were destroyed by Como. And then he comes with the audacity to go out and say, you know what we should do? We should take these closed businesses in New York City and just turn them into public housing. It's like telling someone, oh, we just destroyed your entire net worth. We've taken all your life savings and your small business away. And what we're going to do is we're going, while you now work at McDonald's just to survive and pay, give your family something, we're going to now take some of your taxes and use that to create renovations at your old small business locations that people can sleep that don't have jobs. That's Governor Cuomo. Absolutely vile. I mean, the guy is disgusting, absolutely disgusting. His brother preaching wear a mask, like how dare you not wear one on TV for all summer long? You know, who told you that protests have to be, civil? Well, by the First Amendment, I recall, like it can't be violent or something like that. It's like, when he's not wearing a mask at his building, been censored by his building people, all around New York City, not wearing a mask, criticized. The game is such bullshit, these people. But then taking a bunch of nursing home locations and forcing them to take COVID patients, and then lying about the deaths at those, was it 90,000 or something like that? I can't remember the number. I don't want to inflate it myself. But he deflated it, saying that by mentioning in summation the deaths of the nursing homes caused by forcing those nursing homes to take COVID patients so that they had more hospital beds, basically infecting people the most susceptible, old people at nursing homes. We decided not to count those numbers because that would be double counting, which is a theory of the people that do those statistics at the government level are incompetent. That's the implication. We don't want to make their job harder. That was his reasoning for doing so. Even though someone blew the whistle in his office saying, we're kind of lying about this on purpose. We're deflating so it doesn't look bad, so we don't look bad. He was concerned that was wrong. So it's kind of hard to believe Como in that regard. It's also hard to believe that this is the right reasoning considering no other state does it this way. We didn't not count nursing home deaths because we thought that might be double counting COVID deaths. If anything, most states have overstated COVID deaths to create kind of like a clustering, just have an idea of like, okay, this person was diagnosed or had symptoms, and we kind of have an idea. Overstating it for the sake of statistics and knowing how the virus is moving was better. But yeah, he is gross, just gross. I can't stand the guy. Jury selection began on Monday in the murder case of Derek Chauvin, one of the officers accused of murdering George Floyd, or contributing to the murder of George Floyd. The other officers will be tried separately and they will not testify, according to the defense attorneys for Mr. Chauvin. Mr. Chauvin had attempted to throw out the third-degree murder charge, which is very similar to the manslaughter charge, except that in terms of the burden of proof. But it carried a 25-year sentence versus a 10. And it would also basically fill the gamut of possibilities in terms of guilt with exception to negligence. In other words, in the second-degree murder case, he has to commit a felony while committing murder. In the third degree, this has to be a violent act while committing murder. And finally, manslaughter says you just merely have to be negligent. The implication being that the third-degree murder charge is so close to the manslaughter case that when juries are instructed to review, it's very difficult to bifurcate the two, except one has a much more severe sentence. And given that many prosecutors and legal pundits have talked about what would the sentence be for Derek Chauvin, who's never been convicted of anything. I mean, he's been a police officer, he's never done anything wrong in his life, or been charged, rather. He has 17 citations for complaints from citizens, pedestrians, whatever. But none of those came to fruition in terms of anything, in terms of censure. So 12 and a half years is what people have talked about if you were to be found guilty of second degree. Third degree, maybe it's slightly less. Manslaughter then becomes something like 5, 4, 3. The issue in this case, I think, the predominant issue, and I think this is important, going back to Rodney King, no one saw, the media had the full tape, and they cut it up, they edited it. There's a black legal scholar named William Walters has accused the press of just being completely this disgusting. Imagine if that was a murder case where someone was on the line. Never mind, this is exonerating someone, giving them civil rewards, right? Murder, that's way different, but it's happening again. If you watch the entire body cam footage, you will, no matter what you think of systemic racism and police brutality, whether you think it's an epidemic of mass proportion, you will change your opinion of the circumstances surrounding George Floyd's death. You have to. In terms of just pure rage, racism, malicious intent, it's way more complicated because Derek Chauvin's just an afterthought for most of that event. You watch the tape for an hour. It's a full hour of coverage they have. Obviously, what TV station hasn't much time to show, so they bifurcate it, they cut it up, they pick segments and they put it together and say, this is what happened. Look, this guy has his knee on this man's neck and then he dies. Disgusting, vile, awful. I agree wholeheartedly. I absolutely agree. The circumstances leading up to that, though, Derek Chauvin is not even there. It's other officers that are trying to tell this man, listen, we're not trying to hurt you. You passed a $20 bill allegedly at this store. We stopped you in your car, took you out of the car. You're saying you have trouble breathing. We're letting you breathe. You're talking to us. You're resisting arrest the entire time. We're not doing much. We're asking you to please sit in this police car. You refuse. We want to talk to you. Want to help you. We're going to keep the windows open. This is all the police officer said. There's a black man on the corner saying, "You can't win, or you can't fight them. This is a losing battle. Stop trying to fight them." Basically affirming that the officers are dealing with a man who's resisting arrest. George Floyd, it sounds like he's trying to talk his way out of being arrested. He's claustrophobic, he did nothing wrong, blah, 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 which implies, what are the officers supposed to do? Even if that's true and you've done nothing, they have to detain you. And magistrate maybe downtown gets you, a PR bond or something like that, but that's the process. It's like when people talk about how the United States government is splitting up families at the border, it's like saying that if your father's drinking and driving with you in the car, that the officers involved are splitting up families. Crossing the border illegally, regardless of whether you have children or not, is a crime. And they aren't going to put children with adult family members who have committed the crime. Your kids don't go with you to the drunk tank at the precinct, right? So, I don't mean to smile either. It's early in the morning, and I was watching the entire video last night at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I decided I have to do a full video of this. But to finish the video for today that I'm going to post, I thought I'd talk about this instead of just ending the video beforehand. I'm gonna go through a play-by-play, an entire hour, because the murder trial will take some time, and just go play-by-play and watch the whole thing, all the footage, all the primary evidence that they have, just so we talk about it. And it's not comedy, it's more the political side of things, but it's more serious and normal, right? But I think it's important because I think it helps demonstrate how dangerous the media can be and how irresponsible they are for the sake of profit. Remember, they may sound like they're trying to be the good guy, in systemic racism. Wonderful, that's fine. Go for it. That's not what their intent is. Their intent is to sell. They will lie, cheat, and steal whatever they can to sell media. They will make up angst and a dichotomy of opinion for the sake of selling. It's just what they do. Now, in the seriousness of this matter, a man died. And I'm not saying whether or not Derek Chauvin's guilty or innocent. I think that he shows negligence at the very end of the video. Given that I don't see George Floyd speaking anymore, he's gone silent, and there's a female firefighter on the scene, and another black man. There's been a crowd now watching him, saying that they're doing this wrong. The knee on the neck maneuver that Derek Chauvin implements is legal in Minneapolis, but condemned other places as being quote unquote dangerous, other police jurisdictions of policing in different parts of the country. But it's legal. And this is where that third degree murder charge and the manslaughter charge are complicated, because it's difficult to charge or to convict Chauvin with a felony assault in that circumstance with a maneuver that is legal. And then if you look at the cause of death, which the coroner states as being asphyxiation, not a early in the morning. The coroner determines it as a heart attack, not asphyxiation. I don't know what the margin of error for that is in a postmortem report, but that's something to consider. How is that relevant to the murder at hand? Mr. Floyd had fentanyl, which is a morphine analog 100 times as powerful as morphine, and methamphetamine in his system. Okay, that complicates things further. The act that Derek Chauvin implemented, did that contribute to his death and cause a heart attack? Possibly, of course, absolutely, possibly. The family conducted a private autopsy which determined asphyxiation. That's complicates matters. Again, in terms of juxtaposing, and I'll research this and talk about this in the longer video. It complicates matters, but what I believe, I'm taking the evidence of the bystanders in the video that they were concerned for this man, given his current predicament from their point of view. They watched, which the video doesn't show. I'm presuming a man is no longer speaking. He's gone silent, and he's dying under the knee of an officer who's trying to detain him. And it's a horrible picture and a horrible sight to see. I would propose, what if George Floyd was white? Kind of like the opposite of that Matthew McConaughey, was it Mississippi Burning? Like, now Matt, she was white. You know, like that scene at the end when he's giving his closing statements to the jury. If you take race out of it, and I'm presuming Officer Chauvin doesn't have a lot of complaints from black members of the community, since some of the ones that have been brought up by the media are white people. Like a white man saying he brandished a Nerf gun, shot a police officer with one of the, plastic Nerf things, and then Officer Chauvin took out his gun and pointed at him. He thought that was excessive. Okay, perhaps. But I would imagine that the media would have chosen black complainants more often than not. And the fact that those probably don't exist because they brought up this white kid to say, hey, this is an example of Officer Chauvin being aggressive and excessive in the past. I don't know. I don't know. It's just, if you take the situation that a new officer shows up as backup for a guy who's resisting arrest from other officers who were on the scene in the beginning, and then he says, okay, this guy is difficult to deal with. I now witnessed it with my own eyes. I decide to implement this maneuver to subdue him, in the process of which he passes away. I'm now charged with murder for being negligent. I should have known he was having a problem. The issue is that his behavior prior suggests that he wasn't having a medical issue. And Officer Chauvin was aware of that when he arrived. So that's a problem. And then Officer Chauvin then witnessed it himself. This man was strong, capable, resisting arrest. That's difficult. It's difficult to... The only thing is, it's what were those third parties witnessing on the scene? Did this man all of a sudden his eyes closed, stopped moving? When did it stop? That's the key. When did Officer Chauvin lift his knee off this man? When did he die? He was declared dead while being taken to the hospital by the paramedics. Or he was declared dead at the hospital immediately. Possibly unclear whether the paramedics were bringing someone who already passed away to the hospital. Difficult to discern whether... I don't know. I have to read more. I will get into that. But the underlying issue is that if it wasn't racial, is this a manslaughter charge? Is this even a murder charge? Like, take the race out of it. Forget race. Is this a negligent thing, or is it an unfortunate accident, or something that happens? If the drugs contributed to this at all, if Derek Chauvin is guilty by 10%, it's an unfortunate circumstance, and he had no ill intent in his mind in terms of treating this person any differently than he would someone else. It's difficult. I don't know. That's all I really have to say about it.